Okay, I think we're recording. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my personal meeting room in Zoom. Today, what we're going to do is go over a very quick 15-minute introduction to PubMed and basic PubMed searching. This is going to preface our advanced PubMed searching that I'm going to give you all next week. So I'm going to allude to some concepts, some advanced searching concepts in this quick tutorial, but for the most part, we're just going to go over the extreme basics. So we're going to talk about phrase searching, Boolean operators, the ands and the ors, and we're going to talk about mesh and index terms versus keyword terms or natural language terms. First things first, I might have said this week one. It's currently November, so I apologize. Can't tell the future. So hopefully I was able to show you the Medical Center Library webpage, but if not, here it is. This is something that you're going to need to bookmark for the foreseeable future. While we're on the topic of bookmarking things, I would also recommend going to the MCL research guides, which is the third option here, scrolling down and then selecting systematic reviews for MCL and bookmarking this as well. We currently have a note on here. It's definitely January by now, so please disregard. But this page is going to be something that I'm going to cover in class, but I would just recommend bookmarking it now. So we go back, we're going to want to start in PubMed. So PubMed is the largest biomedical database in the world. You've probably seen it, you've probably searched it. You might even be familiar with these topics. Even if you are, I ask that you still watch this video. It's not going to be very long. I just want everyone to be on the same page for the next week so that we can just jump right into the systematic searching concepts. If you want to go to PubMed, you can just scroll down and click PubMed. You can also just Google PubMed. It really doesn't matter anymore. But this is the advanced search, and this is where we're going to work. So you can use, let me click over, the basic search, but you're going to need to be able to see what you're doing. Especially when these searches start getting really, really systematic, they're going to get long. So you need to be able to see it and adjust the size of your box. Now, I'm going to just choose a topic and we're going to work with that together. So let's do diabetes and gout. It's probably not any of your topics, so hopefully not, but if it is, congratulations. The most basic thing when you're using the database, one of the things I like to tell people is that the database speaks English, obviously, but it does not understand what we're doing. So things like plurals, things like alternate spellings, those are the same. You can spell tumor with an O or an OU, and they're the same thing, but the database doesn't understand that because it's a database, it's a machine. You have to speak the database's language, which is what I'm going to teach you today. So if you're looking for articles on diabetes and gout, you might have in the past. One of the things that you can do is truly just type out diabetes and gout. So this gets into our first concept. This is our Boolean operator and is for making your search string more specific. So you use and to combine differing concepts, and you want both of those concepts to be a part of the article. Diabetes and gout. I'm going to add it to history. So in the database, there are 1,900 articles on diabetes and gout. So in theory, these articles talk about both of these, but that's not necessarily true. A lot of these articles could be just in passing mentioning diabetes and gout. Now, let's say you want more because you want to add some field codes later, add some limiters later. What I would recommend doing is using your OR. So let's do diabetes or T2DM. So we'll do diabetes or type 2 diabetes mellitus. So OR is our next Boolean concept. There are three. We're only going to talk about two. We'll talk about the not concept later. OR is for similar concepts. So any like synonyms, any alternate spellings, any plurals of terms, anything that is even remotely similar is going to be an OR. So diabetes or T2DM acronym, type 2 diabetes mellitus. We're going to combine that Then we're going to and that with our gout term. So now you can see that I've combined, kind of like a math equation, combined the or and the and. I've started adding parentheses because we're getting a little bit math-y here. It kind of looks like a formula. So I'm going to add that. And this brings up an interesting concept. So I did diabetes or T2DM, and I added an extra term, which in theory should make the search larger. So ors make things bigger, ands make them smaller. But because, well, maybe not even because, it just seems that all articles that talk about T2DM, like the acronym, also mention the term diabetes. So we're not going to capture anything different. In theory, you wouldn't need to or the T2DM term in this search string because it doesn't pull anything. However, if you had other terms for gout, maybe T2DM and a version of gout would pull things. So that's a systematic review concept. Talk about it later. So that's ands and ors. Let's go back and talk about phrase searching. So I'm going to click on actions, add query, and I'm going to pull this back up. So now we don't want 1900 articles. That's way too many to review for a simple literature search, not a systematic search. You can pull anywhere from like 5,000 to 50,000 articles for a systematic search. So 1900 articles, though, for a basic literature concept, it's probably too many. So I'm going to focus actually on decide that I want to look at type 2 diabetes instead of just all diabetes. So I'm going to go back where it says diabetes, and I'm going to now do a phrase search. So I'm going to replace diabetes. I'm going to type out type 2 diabetes. And that is a phrase search. So in PubMed, you do double quotes to denote phrases, which is any term more than one word. So gout does not need double quotes because it's one word. Neither does T2DM, but type 2 diabetes, since it has more than one word, we're going to combine it with the quotes so that we tell the database to search all of these terms next to each other in the article record. You can put everything in quotes if you want. It's not going to do anything. If it just makes your life easier and helps you remember, feel free. It's not going to change anything. So then what another thing I can do is type 2 diabetes. Do I think that's going to pull anything? No. But because the database doesn't understand the difference between plurals and not, put it here. So we've narrowed once again, we narrowed our topic to type 2 diabetes, and we've narrowed, which means that we've narrowed our search results. So we went from 1900 to 385. Very cool. Okay, and then the last thing. So one of the things that I want to show you all today is truncation. So what truncation means is it's denoted by an asterisk, the star on your keyboard. What this does is you put it at the end of a term or a phrase. So you can't do type 2 diabetes. You can't do that, but you can do this. So I pretty much only recommend doing this for plurals. If you truncate too much, what it's going to do is pull other terms. So a good example of this is minor. If you truncate minor, you will get minor and minors, like children, but you will also get minority and minorities. So those two concepts aren't usually something you would or together in a search, any kind of search. So I recommend you be cautious. So if it's easier, you can just search minor or minors and type the plurals out yourself. So with gout, with our search down here, I'll take this and I'll actually delete this because we don't need this twice. We can just add the truncation at the end of diabetes if we wanted to. I don't think anyone says diabetes singular, but for the sake of our search. This is an acronym. You really shouldn't truncate acronyms unless they have plurals associated with them. I don't think T2DM does. You also can't truncate less than 3 characters. So if it were T2D, you couldn't truncate that anyway. You'd have to spell it out. So if you're searching cats, you would need to do cat or cats, whereas kitten, you could truncate. I don't know why I'm thinking about cats. Okay, I'm going to add the truncation to gout in case gouts is a thing. I don't know if it is. I'm going to add it to the history below. So as you can see, we went from 385 to 481. So truncating these added almost 100 more articles. So you have to be careful truncating with systematic reviews and systematic searches because truncation doesn't work the same in every database. If it's easier for you, just spell out the plurals. Okay, so we've covered Booleans, phrase searching, and truncation. We're going to spend the last few minutes talking about mesh and keywords. So kind of like with your textbooks, at the back of your textbooks, you had the index or like glossary, and the index had terms. So like systematic reviews, if that was a keyword in page 1, 3, and 5, the index would say page 1, 3, and 5. So kind of like the back of your textbook. What subject headings or controlled vocabularies do is they index articles with those standardized terms, and then they will an AI pairs mesh terms with articles. So if I open up, let's see, where's one that's not super new? Okay, so here's an article record. This came up in this type 2 diabetes search. You can see it has diabetes listed up here. We scroll all the way down, we'll get the references, and then most articles, not all, but most will have this category called mesh terms. So you search mesh, and it only searches these terms, and these are all controlled terms. So diabetes mellitus type 2 is the mesh term for type 2 diabetes. You can't do search type 2 diabetes mesh. You have to search it like this with the comma and everything. This is a subheading. We'll get to that in a second. So mesh is really good for systematic searching because it does the indexing. And so sometimes it helps you find additional terms. I know I'm clicking too fast. So the mesh terms has its own browser. It's down here. It's called mesh. Click on it. Actually, I'm going to open it in a new thing. So this is the mesh browser. If we have our two concepts, I'm going to type out, I'm going to have a mesh term for at least one mesh term for each concept. So I'm just going to type 2 diabetes into the mesh browser, and it pulls up 2 options. So it has this polyendocrinopathies autoimmune, and then diabetes mellitus type 2, which is what I want. So this is the mesh heading. This is the one you have to use. This is what they call the scope note. So this is the definition. You always need to read this before searching a mesh term because it may be different for your field than is explained here, but it's diabetes too, so fine. You're introduced. PubMed has these things called subheadings, which we do not use for systematic searches, so don't worry too much about it. And then these entry terms. So what an entry term is it is something you could type into the mesh browser to pull this term. But what it can also do is provide other terms for your systematic search, which we'll get into much later. And then this is what they call the mesh tree structure. So diabetes mellitus has broader terms of diabetes mellitus, which will cover type 1, type 2, and other, I think, pregnancy diabetes. And then diabetes mellitus type 2 will have lipotrophic diabetes. So what mesh does is it searches in explosion. So if you search diabetes mellitus type 2, square brackets mesh, that's also going to search diabetes mellitus lipotrophic. So sometimes you don't want that. And for a lot of systematic searching, I recommend not doing that anyway. Is clicking do not include mesh terms found below this mesh term in the hierarchy. And I'll add it, and then all I do is copy and paste it over. So now we have diabetes mellitus type 2 mesh. We're going to OR that with, I'm just going to copy this over actually. and gout. Okay. So there's that. It didn't add anything. That's totally fine. You still need your mesh terms when you're doing a systematic search. And then the last, we could do gout as well. There it is, gout. It'll load. Oh, that's really unfortunate. Here we go. So gout has gouty arthritis underneath. So you could also do, you could want that too. So you could just do gout, add it here, add the or. So now, once again, didn't do anything, totally fine. Your systematic search will do something. Okay, we have a minute left, so I'm going to do one more thing really fast, and that's talk about field codes. So the square bracket mesh is how you tell the database to search the mesh field of the article record that I already showed you. So now for pretty much any search, what I like to do is have the keyword. So anything that's not a mesh term, you can truncate keywords, you can put them into phrase searching, you can have alternate spellings of keywords. You cannot do that with mesh. It's a standardized language, which means that you can't adjust it at all. You have to make sure it's perfect, which is why I usually will just add it over here to the search builder and copy and paste it into PubMed. This, like I said, is not, this will search PubMed, this PubMed search builder, this browser will not. So bring it over, make your life easier. But the square brackets tells the database where to search for that keyword. Those are up here. Almost all of them are listed here. The one that you're going to use is title abstract, which is denoted by square brackets title / abstract, like it says up there, or my favorite, TIAB, shorthand. So that's going to tell the database to search for this term or this phrase in either the title or the abstract of the article record, which is going to make your search a lot more specific. So because these are two completely separate places in the article record, you need to have both your mesh term with a corresponding title abstract term. Oh, it's not going to let me do that. Let me refresh. Okay, so now we went from 481 to 365. So this means now that all of these articles will have that topic in either the title or the abstract, which is really helpful when you're looking for articles that are actually about a topic. Okay, so as you can see, 1 through 7, we went through all of these concepts together. I'm going to create a cheat sheet for you all to use, and I want you to look at it before next week, because we're not going to discuss these concepts on Thursday. We're going to jump right into systematic searching and how that looks and how that works. So if you have any questions, you know how to email me. I'd be more than happy to meet with you to discuss this more in depth. But thank you for watching. I will see you all on Thursday.